This isn't your average chess guide filled with endless theory and boring moves. In this guide, we're not here to play nice or wait around for a draw. We're here to help you take control of the board from the very first move and make your opponents regret ever sitting down across from you. Here's the plan. I know it's going to be hard because some of you all have attention spans of goldfish, but I want you to focus for the rest of this video without any distraction, and I promise you will get better. Okay, video starts now. If you want to win more games, you need to master the basics of the opening. You're ready for a powerful attack later. If it's weak, it all comes crashing down. Here's how to set up a position that puts you in control from the start. The goal in the opening isn't just to move pawns or push one piece back and forth. You need to develop, or activate, your pieces, especially knights and bishops. Knights love to go to f3 and c3 for white, or f6 and c6 for black, because they're positioned to control key squares. Bishops get involved quickly too, usually aiming for open lines that let them attack and defend easily. If you spend too much time making slow moves, your opponent will already be taking over the board. There's nothing worse than realizing your king is a sitting duck. Pause. Alright, listen up. We're on a mission to take down chess thugs and subscribers. They've got 30,000, we have 300. But who cares about numbers, right? Actually, we do. So, smash that subscribe button. Okay, back to the video. Castling, which is moving your king to safety on either side of the board, is one of the most critical things you can do in the opening. When you castle, you're not only tucking your king behind a wall of pawns, but you're also bringing your rook into the game. This is why castling within the first 10 moves is usually ideal. It gives you a safer king and a more active rook. Bringing your queen out too soon is like waving a giant target in front of your opponent. The queen is powerful, but it can also be easily harassed by knights, bishops, and pawns early in the game. If you move your queen out too early, you may find yourself wasting time just trying to keep her safe, which gives your opponent a head start in development. Tactics are the heart of chess. They're the surprise moves and traps that can quickly turn the game in your favor if you spot them.
Sacrificed my rook!
Learning to recognize these patterns is key to catching your opponent off guard, and to not falling into traps yourself. Let's break down some of the most common tactical themes you'll see again and again in chess. Forks. A fork is when one piece, especially a knight, attacks two or more enemy pieces at the same time. Knights are particularly good at this because of their unique movement, which allows them to jump around and attack pieces that aren't even on the same rank, file, or diagonal. But forks aren't limited to knights. Any piece can fork, including pawns. A classic example is using a pawn fork to attack both a queen and a rook, forcing your opponent to give up material. Look for places where a single piece can target two unprotected enemy pieces or one valuable piece on the king. Knights are especially fork happy when they're close to the opponent's territory, so always check for those tricky L-shaped jumps. Pins. A pin happens when you attack a piece that, if it moved, would expose a more valuable piece to capture behind it. For instance, if a bishop pins an enemy knight to the king, that knight can't legally move because doing so would place the king in check. How to spot pins. Watch for alignment. If you see your opponent's king or queen on the same line as one of their pieces, there might be a pin opportunity. Bishops and rooks are especially strong for creating pins since they operate on long, clear lines. Skewers. A skewer is like a reverse pin. It's when you force a valuable piece, such as a king or queen, to move, exposing a less valuable piece behind it. For example, if you place a rook in a position to give check and force the opponent's king to move, the piece behind the king will be exposed and vulnerable to capture. Rooks, bishops, and queens are best for skewering because of their long-range control. Hold up, this video is actually sponsored by me. Yep, you heard that right, we are moving up in this world, so check out my free school link in description. It's free for the first 100 people, so join fast, and if you don't like it you can leave whenever you want. We have every course you could possibly need to succeed, and you will get 24 hours access chat with me where you can ask me any question you want. So if you're interested in that, it's the top link in the description. Discovered attacks. In a discovered attack, you move one piece to reveal an attack by another piece behind it. This can be doubly powerful if it involves a check, as your opponent is forced to respond to the check, leaving the newly revealed attack unchallenged. Piece activity. Activity refers to how much influence your pieces have over the board. Active pieces control important squares and can quickly reach both sides of the board to support attacks or defenses. Rooks are most effective on open files or files with few pawns, as they can exert pressure on the opponent's position. Placing bishops on long diagonals maximizes their range and influence, particularly in open positions. Tip: regularly assess your piece's activity. If a piece isn't contributing, look for ways to reposition it to a more active square. King safety. Keeping your king safe is a priority in every game. Usually, castling early provides safety by moving the king away from the center and allowing the rooks to connect. King placement. Kings are best sheltered behind pawns, especially when castled. Avoid pawn weaknesses. Moving pawns around your king can create weaknesses, especially if your opponent can attack the exposed squares. Counterattacking. If your opponent's king is less safe, consider launching an attack to exploit that imbalance. Tip: watch for open files or weakened squares around the enemy king as possible targets for an attack. Pawn structure. Pawns are the foundation of positional play. Once moved, pawns can't go back, so careful pawn play is crucial. Good pawn structures create strongholds for your pieces, limit your opponent's mobility, and support endgame plans. Isolated pawns. Pawns with no neighboring pawns, like an isolated d-pawn, are often weak because they need constant defense and can be targeted by the opponent. Doubled pawns. Pawns that stack on the same file after a capture, like doubled c-pawns, can become weaknesses but can also open up lines for rooks and bishops. Pawn chains. A connected series of pawns, or a pawn chain, can control key squares and create a stronghold. However, pawn chains can also become targets if the base of the chain is weak. Tip: focus on creating a solid pawn structure early on and avoid unnecessary pawn moves that could leave lasting weaknesses. Weak squares and outposts. A weak square is one that can't be defended by pawns, making it an excellent place for pieces like knights to settle in as an outpost. Outposts allow you to maintain control over important sections of the board and restrict your opponent's piece activity. Tip: create outposts for your knights and bishops, especially in the opponent's half of the board, and avoid leaving weak squares that your opponent's pieces can occupy. Space advantage. Controlling more space on the board allows your pieces to move freely and restricts your opponent's options. When you have a space advantage, you can often mount attacks more effectively because your pieces aren't cramped. Expanding with pawns. Advance pawns to control more squares, but be careful not to overextend and leave weaknesses behind. Tip: when you have a space advantage, avoid unnecessary exchanges, as reducing material benefits the side with less space. Developing strategic thinking. Think in terms of short-term and long-term plans. For example, a short-term plan could be to double rooks on an open file, while a long-term plan might involve preparing a pawn break to open up the center. Consider moves that prevent your opponent's plans, often called prophylactic moves. By anticipating their threats and countering them in advance, you force your opponent to adapt to your play. Regularly evaluate the board, focusing on material, king safety, piece activity, and pawn structure. This helps you make sound strategic decisions based on the current state of play rather than assumptions. Endgames are the final phase of a chess game, where fewer pieces are on the board, and every move can be crucial. Unlike openings or middle games, endgames often require precise calculation, careful planning, and deep understanding of fundamental concepts. Knowing how to handle common endgame positions can make the difference between a win and a draw. Let's explore key principles, essential concepts, and common endgame positions to help you excel in this stage of the game. Key endgame principles. In endgames, the king is a powerful attacking piece rather than just a target. With fewer threats on the board, the king should actively participate in the fight, often moving toward the center or key squares. Avoid backranks. In many endgames, the active king is critical for either side, so try to bring your king forward to restrict your opponent's options. Tip: don't be afraid to use your king aggressively in the endgame. It's a vital tool for control and even for winning material. Pawns become much more valuable in endgames. The concept of passed pawns, pawns that have no opposing pawns blocking their way to promotion, is crucial in endgames. Creating and advancing passed pawns is often the most direct way to secure a win. The closer a pawn is to promotion, the stronger the pressure it exerts. A passed pawn far from the other pawns can distract the opponent's king and create winning chances, as it often requires them to divert attention, allowing your king or other pawns to advance. Tip: always be aware of the potential for creating passed pawns, as they can shift the balance of the game in your favor. Welcome to Pawn E4 Chess School, where we turn beginners into masters and masters into legends. Whether you're stuck in a rut or looking to sharpen your skills, our proven training methods are designed to skyrocket your ELO and transform your chess game. Here's how we do it. Anti-blunder course. Stop blunders in their tracks. Our anti-blunder course teaches you how to spot danger before it happens, ensuring you make smart, winning moves every time. Pattern recognition training. Unlock the power of pattern recognition. Learn to identify winning patterns and strategies used by grandmasters. With this training, you'll see the board like never before. The art of attacking. Become a relentless attacker. Learn the art of offense and how to put pressure on your opponents, forcing them to play your game. Mastering the opening. The first few moves can make or break your game. Master the opening, control the board, and dictate the flow of every match you play. And so much more. From advanced tactics to endgame strategies, our courses cover it all. No matter your skill level, we have the perfect training for you.